Well, ladies and gentlemen, did you read the caption? My worst sales experience. What happened? I got drugged when I was doing a sales presentation. Now, ladies and gentlemen, today is Tuesday, the 16th of November, 2021. Now, if you're joining me for the first time, please say hello into the chat box. I would love to connect with you. If you've watched my live streams before, if you've been to my trainings before, say hello in the chat box and let's begin this conversation. So, before living in Taiwan, I used to live in Australia and I used to work in the western suburbs of Sydney. Now, the western suburbs of Sydney are around about 60 to 70 kilometres out from the centre of Sydney. And I was working in a place called St Mary's, and there was the surrounding suburbs, Mount Druitt, St Clair, Erskine Park. And it was a blue-collar area, more of an industrial type area and out in the suburbs. Now, in 1999 through to 2001, I was selling real estate. And I never, ever, by the way, I never set a goal to get drugged when I was out doing work. It just kind of happened. So let me tell you what happened and what happened when I got drugged at a sales presentation. So I'm selling real estate, and part of my job was to prospect. Now, prospecting was in that stage going door to door, knocking on doors and introducing yourself. You'd knock on the door. Hello, my name is Daniel Tolson. I'm the local real estate agent here. Just thinking, are you wondering about buying another home in the area, or are you thinking of selling? And I'd go around and I'd knock on about 500 doors per day. Jenny, thank you for joining me. And not per day, per week. And I'd knock on about 500 doors per week. That was my sales target. Anyway, I found one gentleman who said, I would like to sell my property. And he looked strong, he looked fit, and he came to the door with these two good-looking girls. And he said, could you give me a price on the home? I said, well, today I can't do a price on the home today. However, give me a couple of days. I'll come back. I'll bring all of my equipment and we will give you an evaluation on the house. And he said that sounded good. So back then we didn't use computers. We didn't have iPads. I wrote it in my diary. I wrote it on a piece of paper and I said to him, I'll see you in a couple of days. So a couple of days later, I came back and I followed my protocol. I parked my car out the front of the house. I had my suit and tie on. I walked in the house. I built rapport, house needs-based questions, and I learned about his situation. He showed me the house, I drew diagrams, and then we sat down at the table. As we sat down at the table, he offered me a coffee. Now, I love coffee, and he offered me a coffee. So if you're a coffee lover, type in the word coffee if you're a coffee lover. And he offered me a coffee. Now, one of the ladies that he was with, he had two ladies in the kitchen with him, and something was off about these two. Something was very strange about these two. I even thought for a moment that these women might have even been prostitutes. I thought these women might have been prostitutes, and I was starting to think to myself that this guy might even be a pimp. Remember, I said he was really good looking. He had a couple of really good looking women there, but as I got to learn more about the situation, I think I was dealing with a pimp and his two hoes. So he made me the coffee. I drank the coffee, and when I drank the coffee, it was really bitter. It was very, very acidic, but not acidic like coffee, acidic like somebody had put paracetamol or some type of medication in there. Now, I drank the coffee and he was watching me intensely. As I looked around, his two hoes were looking at me intensely and watching me drink the coffee. And I started to think to myself, this is strange. This does not appear to me like the normal setup of a homeowner and somebody who lives with him. And definitely this coffee was way too acidic, not bitter. It was acidic. And he asked me about 3 times, how's the coffee? How's the coffee? How's the coffee? And his two hoes were looking at me, leaning forward. And I thought to myself, is something going to happen? And all of a sudden, it must have been within about 2 minutes, my vision spread from the peripheral and it started to become from what's called peripheral vision into foveal vision. It was like I was gaining this tunnel vision, and it was like this big circle started to close in upon me, and my vision started to shrink. And I had all this blackness and darkness, and my vision started to shrink, and shrink. And it was like I was looking through a pipe or a tube. And as my vision started to shrink, I started to lose my hearing, but I could feel that my heartbeat, boom, 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 and my vision started to shrink. And as it started to shrink, it looked like his two hoes and him started to get closer to me, and they kept staring at me, staring at me, staring at me. And a little voice inside of my head said, Daniel, get the fuck out of here. Daniel, grab your shit and run. Now, my vision started to contract, and I had this form of tunnel vision, and I could see the front door, and the front door was closing in, and I felt like Alice in Wonderland. The front door was getting smaller, but it was getting further away, and I thought to myself, I've got to go now. So I quickly grabbed my presentation material. I knew my keys were in my pocket. I got up and I ran out the front door. Nothing was said. Nobody chased me. I ran out the front door. I jumped in my car. I started it, and I went as fast as I could down the road. And I got probably around about 2 kilometers down the road, about 2,000 meters, about 1.5 miles down the street. And then I started to lose the feelings in my hands. I started to lose the feelings in my legs. And my vision was all the way shrunk down. It was like a pin. It was like I was looking through the end of a pin or through the loop of a needle. I pulled over into a side street and I quickly rang my uncle and I said, this is where I am. I've been drugged. I need your help. And about a minute later, I was cataleptic. My body had frozen. My muscles had tightened up. And not long after that, my uncle came and got me. And he took me back to the office. And about an hour or two after that, whatever was in my system, whatever drug was in my system was now out. And I could start to talk again. Jenny, not freeze, flight, and fight mode. No, something totally different. My body had shut down. The drug that they put in my coffee was like a tranquilizer. It's like I had been tranquilized, and my system just shut down. So my uncle took care of me. I told him who it was, and then a couple of weeks later, the police did a drug bust on his house. He was a pimp. He had prostitutes, he had drugs in the house, and 2 weeks after, he was in jail. And that was the nightmare sales experience that I had. It was the time where I got drugged at a sales presentation. So I'm lucky because I survived, but I also want you to be vigilant. If you ever have to do house calls, make sure you go out with somebody and be vigilant. But I survived to tell the story, and here I am today. So, yes, Jenny, thank you so much. I did escape, and that's one of these exciting things in life that one day when we survive, we get to tell our tales. So, ladies and gentlemen, has this ever happened to you? Have you ever been out on a sales presentation and somebody's drugged you or even put alcohol in your drink? Leave a comment below, and I want to hear your story. Have a wonderful day.